All right, we are having a training tonight for the beginner version of track wrestling tournament operation, which is going to focus a little bit more on local tournament operations, kind of what you would be doing at a local event or even maybe your state tournament, depending on the size of your event. We're going to use Madison block bracketing to build the brackets, which is going to be based on actual weight. And then we are going to assign brackets to mats for the entire day. So that's what we're going over today with this training. Our OEP committee has been tasked with like training people, getting them up to speed so that everyone will have a much smoother tournament at their local level, and also to get our national and regional pairs at the level they need to be in order to run those tournaments in conjunction with the USA Wrestling staff. So at this time, I'm going to start sharing my screen, which I still can't do for some reason. And then I'll show you how to get started. All right, here we go. Okay. So I have a tournament open here. And the first thing we're going to talk about is groups and divisions. On this screen, you can get to this under setup, groups and divisions. You can go left menu, groups and divisions. There's quite a few different menus. Just keep in mind these menus are broken out now and not just left menu like it used to be in years past to what's relevant to you. So if you're setting up, that's what you need to go under. If you're doing registration and weigh-ins, it would be under registration. Bracketing is kind of self-explanatory, and operating will be more like your tournament operation stuff. That's how they have it broken out now, just for ease of use and a smaller menu. So in this groups page, there's an add a group button. So when you add a group, you would just type in the name of the group. So let's just pretend that we're going to make a Pee-wee group, which would be called 6U in this, because of all of our other ones are called what age they are. And I don't even know what we have this one set up at, but oops, we would never use old rules because that's going to be a 3-period format. Then you would set your pre-registration fee, your on-site registration fee, and your match length. Let's just say these little dudes are only going to get 2 minutes on the mat. And you click add, and it will add it to your list. One thing that's really important, especially at local tournaments, and if you're using a pre-registration system, is this date of birth range. If you have this set to the date of birth range that you want for your event based on the USA Wrestling like calendar, I guess you would call it, or age and weight chart, that would allow someone who registers with a specific birth date to only be able to choose the correct age division for their wrestler. That's a really good idea to prevent a bunch of errors happening. I'm going to change this to folk style because I'm a little bit anal. I want them all to say the same thing. All right, so that's how you would add a group. Keep in mind this match length right here. The only place that this is going to affect is when you're assigning to mats. This is the calculation. This information is what's going to go into that calculation to determine how to spread the matches out. A lot of times you would want to keep these the same, even though junior matches are technically longer than 6U matches. In all honesty, matches tend to historically kind of take the same amount of time, which can vary in different regions. Actually, in Colorado, our 16U and junior matches tend to go really, really slow. Like they just, I don't know, they just wrestle a long time. So we have to play with it a little bit. But just keep in mind that this match length, when you'll see in a little bit when I start assigning to mats, there's a number at the top that says this group of brackets on this mat is going to take this amount of time. That's where this is coming from. This doesn't set your period lengths. I'll show you how to do that in just a little bit. All right, so I wanted to show you really quick in setup rounds. At this time, I have no bracket types in there, so there's nothing in this rounds page. So as soon as I start adding bracket types, the rounds will start filling in. And then I'll show you how to set up rounds for a round robin tournament. I'm going to put in just round robin bracket types for this training. So you would go to setup or bracketing bracket types and find the brackets that you need. And we're going to put in 2-man best of 3, and you just use this little plus button to add it. There's also this little view sample button. If you're unsure what the bracket looks like, you kind of want to check it before you add it to make sure it's the one that you want. Obviously, these round robins are pretty straightforward. We know what we're getting into here. But if it's a different kind of, if you're looking for a weird kind of scramble or something, you can always view the sample and check out what it's going to do before you add it to your tournament. So I've added the 2 and the 3-man. Now I need to add the 4-man round robin. And I just want to show you really quick, since it's fast, this is fast, I'll just show you what it does on the rounds. So what this does on the rounds page is it's going to add a line for each bracket and each round. So if you were to run your tournament the way this is set up right here, on your mat, all the 4-man brackets would wrestle first, then all the 3-man round ones, then all the 2-man round ones. Then it would come back and start the second round with the 3-man round robins for some unknown reason, then the 2-mans, then the 4-mans. So you can see how even in this simple tournament setup, this would be pretty confusing for people. They wouldn't really know what order they were wrestling in. So it's really important to combine these rounds into the same one. It's really easy to do. You just click on these, click save round or combine selected rounds, and this one would be called round 1. I'm just going to show you that. And then I'm going to add the 4 and the 5-man round robin. I mean the 5 and the 6-man round robin, because that's how I'm going to build this tournament up to a 6-man round robin. And then I just wanted to show you how this would work if you go through the process of setting all of this up correctly and then adding a bracket type at the last moment. I just want to show you what it does to your tournament. You might not realize it's going to be messed up because you didn't fix the rounds page. Anytime you add a bracket type, you need to go in and fix the rounds page. So I'm going to go in and add my 5-man round robin and my 6-man round robin. And then I'll go back to the rounds page. And as you can see now, if I happen to add these, you know, right before we started wrestling because I had a couple of extra kids in a couple of brackets and I didn't come and fix this, it's not going to be the way I want it to be. So one thing that you should know about a 5-man bracket and a 6-man bracket, round robin bracket, there's 5 rounds in those. In the 2, 3, and 4, there's only 3 rounds. So what most tournaments do, so that they don't have go time issues either at the beginning or the end, they start with just their 6 and their 5. I'm going to name this round half. When you're naming these rounds, nobody ever sees this. It's going to be whatever makes sense to you. So sometimes I go into a lot of detail, especially like if I have someone else running a tournament and I want to make sure they understand what I did in setup. But I think this is easier for me. Actually, I would name this round 1. It's whatever makes sense to you guys. All right, so you come back through and you just do all of them. So as you notice, round 1, round 1, round 1 for the littler brackets, and then round 2 for 5 and 6-man. So now I need to come back and combine these so that they'll wrestle in weight order as well. It's going to be round 3 of the 5 and 6-man, round 2 of everyone else. This I'm going to call round 2. And then I'm going to do the same thing for round 3/4. I guess I could name them that. And then this will be round 5. Whoops. So if you can visualize, if you didn't start with just these guys at the beginning, you could potentially have some severe go time issues with if you did everybody, 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 and then you had 2 more rounds of just 5 and 6 man brackets, you could run into some pretty severe go time issues on your mats that maybe only have 1 or 2 of these larger brackets assigned to that mat. It could come into some problems. So this is the recommended way. Now keep in mind that you do have to watch this round a little bit because sometimes you'll have some pretty close together matches. I'll show you on the About Detail page after we build our brackets what I'm talking about. All right, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is users. So this is going to be under Setup Users. There's 3 different types of users. There's administrators. Those people are going to have access to every single thing. Statisticians are usually just sometimes people allow coaches to go in and enter actual weights. They have much less ability to kind of look around at settings and mess with your tournament. Workers have a little bit more limited capacity. They can't do anything major like, you know, redo your rounds page and things like that because they're probably not as experienced as an administrator. So you can just decide what you want to give people access to. Keep in mind that you always have to have a worker added if you're using electronic bouts before it'll let you even kind of go into electronic bouts. I'm just going to add a worker just to show you how to add any type of user. So let's just call worker, and we'll just do work. You can make these whatever you want. I tend to make my password different for each event because I don't like people having an idea of what I'm doing. So I don't want people messing with my events. Let's just put it that way. So, but you can do whatever you feel comfortable with. All right, so then you just click add and it adds it in there. So just keep in mind, even track wrestling staff can't see this password. It's always going to look like that for all of us. So if you ever need us, to change a password for you, we can, or you can always just add another worker if you forgot your password and you're good to go. All right. So now we're going to talk about mats. And you can go set up, mats is under a lot of these different things because mats are used all the time, but operating mats, I've already set up the mats. It's really easy to add a mat. You just click add mat, it tells you to name it and you add it. It's super easy. One thing right now, the only 2 items I have up here is mats and assign mats, which works for me perfectly in this tournament situation. If you need to use assignment schemes, we go over that in the advanced training and you can watch that video for more details on that. Okay, next we're going to talk about setting time periods, which is the length of time for each of your matches. This is especially important when you're using electronic bouts because you want to make sure that the time that pops up on the electronic controller is the time that you want it to be. This is a little bit tricky for people who have never done it because it's kind of a few clicks in. It's actually under bracket types and then in this advanced settings, this little gear. So you click that and then you'll see period lengths. This is set up as an open tournament, so period length shows here. If you're in a predefined tournament, you would need to look for the words bout text. And then once you click on bout text, you'll see where you can set the period lengths, but it's still under bracket types. All right, so in this situation, I'm only going to use 10U, and you can either type them in. If I type them in here, it's only going to be setting it up for 10U in the 2-man best of 3 bracket, and I would have to go into each bracket type to do this. If you have the same period length for the 10U throughout your tournament, which in a round robin tournament you would because there's no consolation matches, it's all considered championship matches, you can use this set period times by division. So you click on that, and then if you always should read your script that pops up. This one says type set to continue, so you type set, and then it says enter the period times you would like to set for all brackets for this division. Period times in this are always going to be seconds separated by a comma. So how many seconds are in each period separated by a comma. So let's just pretend that 10U only wrestles 3 1-minute periods. So it would be 60, 60, 60. I click that. It adds that in there. Now let me just show you, since we set it by division, it should be in every other bracket type as well. So we can go in and check the 3-man round robin period lengths for 10U. And there it is, it's already filled in for you. So that is a really fast and easy way to set your period lengths. And honestly, if you forgot to set a period length for an age group and they're wrestling and they're like, these are coming up as 2 minutes, which it'll always default to if you haven't entered a period length, super quick and easy to fix, and then it'll be fixed for the rest of the day. It happens to all of us at times. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is rest time and where to set that up. This is one of the only times I ever use left menu because this is the only place you can find it. Left menu, print documents, about sheets, and this is where your minimum break time is. This is a USA Wrestling tournament, so we're going to change this to 15 minutes. So I clicked on Advanced Settings. I'm going to change this to 15, save settings, and then I actually have to, if I really want to double check it, I have to close that, reopen it, and it's set to 15 minutes. So that's where you go to fix your rest time. All right, since most of you are using the pre-registration system with your track wrestling tournaments, we're going to talk a little bit about deadlines. So you can either go setup or registration deadlines. And in an open tournament, which this is, there's only 2 deadlines. Lockout statisticians, which is also when you're going to close your registration, your pre-reg, and release information to the public. Those are the 2 options you get. If you're using a predefined event, it's going to give you a few other options that have to do with the period of time coaches can change their lineups and also the period of time they can enter their seating criteria. So if you ever need to change, like say you're getting ready to build your brackets, which I'm going to be doing here in a few minutes, and I don't want the public to be able to watch me in case I kind of mess with it a little bit after they're built. I just don't want them looking at it while I'm building it. I only want to show it to the public after I'm ready for them to see everything. Instead of like thinking about what time is it right now, what time zone am I in, just the easiest way is if you want to kind of lock out the public from seeing it, set the date to tomorrow, because then you know for sure, no matter where you are, unless you're like in Australia or somewhere, but that it's not going to show to the public at all. So just change this instead of thinking about the time. And then obviously after you finish building your brackets, you would want to then change it to yesterday so that it would be open to public viewing. You can also always pop on to another tab, go into your tournament as a viewer and see if it's working. So that's something you can do if you're having trouble. All right, now we're going to talk about number schemes. And these number schemes are going to be specific to an event that is assigning to the mat for the day. So basically, the easiest way to do this is to have a separate number scheme for each mat. So in this case, we would want to use this Add Mat Schemes button. This is going to add a scheme for each of the mats that I have previously set up, which I had 6 of them. So that just adds one number scheme to each mat. Do you see how this is already filled in with the mat? And then we usually go in and change this to a specific number. You can either do the 100 if it's a small tournament, or you can do the 1,000. Always you want your about numbers start with number 1, so that's why we do 1001 and so on. So this way at a local tournament, it's really easy. Instead of them having to go like search for their bracket to see which mat they're assigned to, they always know that if they have a bout number that starts with 1,000 with a 1 at the beginning, they're on mat 1, and so on and so forth. It's a pretty easy way for the end consumer. So now that I have my number scheme set up, that'll be all fixed so that when I'm ready to build my brackets, I can just apply the number schemes and it'll be good to go. All right, we're going to talk about entering actual weights. So I guess briefly I'll talk about weigh-in cards and weigh-in sheets. So it just depends on what you want to do when you're at your tournament. A lot of tournaments, especially this actual weight kind of round robin style tournament, you have either the parents entering the actual weight upon registration, which is a really great way to do it because then you know you have an actual weight for each person. Some states use statisticians, like I mentioned earlier, for the coaches to go in and enter weights, like on a weigh-in night. The problem with that sometimes is some of the kids might not be registered for the tournament if their parents kind of forgot or are waiting till the last minute. Those types of things can come up. A great way is just to require that information to be added while they're registering. Then you know for sure you have it. But regardless, if you need to use an actual weigh-in, you can go into, if you notice I clicked registration weigh-ins, and then you can search by name or you can search by wrestler ID, which you can, within every track wrestling tournament, the wrestler ID is assigned to each wrestler. It's a really quick and easy way to enter weights if you're doing that manually. If you have any questions, we'll go over that with you. So that's how you enter actual weights. Now we'll talk about deleting no-shows. There's a couple of different ways to delete no-shows. I'm going to go into operating wrestlers. This is where I go to see who has an actual weight entered. In this particular tournament, since we use wrestlers from Wisconsin Wrestling State Tournament, State Folk Style Tournament, we have all different wrestlers' ages in here. The only ones that have an actual weight are our 10Us, which is what we're using tonight. And so if you click on any of these, it'll toggle basically. So if I click on it again, it's going to bring the heaviest guy to the top. If I click on it, it'll bring the lightest guy, which obviously all these other age groups have not had a weight entered for them, so they're all going to seem like a no-show. So I could just delete all of them. I'm not going to do that. But there's a few different ways you can delete no-shows. So you can bring the wrestlers who have not weighed in to the top. All of these little things up here are a toggle. If I do 10U, no, I was thinking maybe it would just do, okay, hold on, let me do this. Nope. All right, this is a little bit strange because we usually don't have a huge bulk of kids that don't have their weights entered, but there's a few different ways you can do it. You can go in and look for the guys who don't have a weight and delete them with this little check mark. And then there's a delete selected participants button. You can do delete no-shows. But just know what you're doing because you don't want to delete kids and then have to add them back in. So just make sure you understand the implications of your actions. So after you get done deleting no-shows, you would then go on to build your brackets. So now we're going to talk about how to use Madison Block Bracketer. So one thing to understand that, do you see how none of these guys have a weight class, none of the 10Us, but these other let's go. These guys have weight classes. The only way that wrestlers will show up in Madison Block Bracketer is if they have an actual weight listed and they don't have a weight class. So just keep in mind, when you're using the pre-registration system, even in this style of an event, you'll have to add a weight class for the wrestlers to register into. But in order to get them to show up in the Madison Block Bracketer, you will need to delete those NA weight classes or not applicable weight classes before they would show up in the Madison Block Bracketer. In this case, we don't really need to do that because we didn't use a pre-reg, we just imported these guys. So what I like to do in this particular format is I have a 6-man bracket in there, but just think about it. If I fill every bracket with 6 kids in every single bracket, and then Joey comes up and says, I'm not in the bracket, I don't have anywhere for him to go. So I would have to rebuild that whole entire age group to get him in. So what I like to do is I have the 6-man in there just in case I need it, but I build 5-mans, which is still 4 matches for each wrestler, which is a great day of wrestling for them. And then if a few kids come up and they need a place to fit in, I can just make those a 6-man bracket and it works really nicely. So basically, all you have to do is you select your group, you set your grouping number, which means how big of a bracket you want it to be, and then you set your weight tolerance, your weight difference tolerance. This is the percentage of weight between wrestlers. So like if I set it to 1%, you can see this 49-pounder is actually not even going to have anyone to wrestle. Usually 10 to 15, somewhere in that range is an acceptable weight difference tolerance, but that varies, I guess, based on how light you are or how heavy you are, probably, would be your opinion. So like this guy, Quentin, is probably going to have trouble because he weighs quite a bit more than the other people in his age group. So technically, he's outside of the 10% allowance. You can always, at a local tournament, call these wrestlers up, see if any of them are willing to wrestle him. If they all are, perfect. You can just use this move up a bracket button to put them all in the same bracket. Obviously, you don't need to ask Quentin because he's the heaviest one, but you would need to ask the light guys. Maybe only 1 or 2 of them want to, then you could duplicate those wrestlers, put them into 2 different brackets. So they would be wrestling, maybe this Holden guy is a little bit scared to wrestle this big of a kid, but these 120-pounders will do it. You can duplicate them, and I can show you really quickly how to do that. But let's just pretend that they all agreed to it. Everything looks good. They're all in the right groups. Usually you don't even really have to double check it because it does it based on your parameters. And then you can just click this create brackets button and they all disappear because their brackets have already been created. So you go back to groups and divisions, 10U, and you'll notice that all the brackets are built and your weight ranges are here. Let me show you really quickly how to duplicate a kid. You would just click on him to get to his wrestler kind of profile page, I guess you would call it. And then there's a duplicate participant button right there. It's really easy to do. You click it. What group do you want him in? I still want him in 10U. You would pick like a different weight class for him, and then he would be in there twice. Just a heads up. It's super easy to do. All right, so now we have all of our brackets built. I'm gonna go delete that kid I just put in there because I don't like that. I just wanted to show you. Nah, he's not in the actual bracket, so we're good to go. All right, so after you get that done, you would need to number your matches. So you would go, actually you have to assign them to a mat first, sorry. So you'd go to your mats, and then you would use the assign mats. This number right here is what I was talking about earlier, this 1.5 hours, 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 1 hour. These numbers are coming off of what you have set up on your groups page based on how long it takes them to wrestle. So I'm not sure if this will fix much, but if all of my mats are the same size and I don't really care that the littlest guys all wrestle on the same mat, you can use these little filters over here. Usually in this case, I would choose just optimize instead of maintain, order, and optimize. Apply filter. That's going to get my match lengths a lot closer together, as even as they can be spaced out on this many mats. It's still not totally ideal, but it's about as good as you're going to get with this. So as soon as it looks right to you and you like how it looks, you just click Save All. They all turn bold, and that means they're assigned to that mat. All right, now we can apply our number schemes. So you go to Number Schemes, and this is just going to apply these number schemes to all those guys. Brackets. You can use Leave Frozen Status as it is right now. During our corrections video that we'll have on later, which is how to fix corrections, add kids to brackets and things, we'll discuss the relevance of all of these because each one means a little bit different thing and some people get confused about which time is good to use which. So we'll go into that in greater detail in that video if you want to check it out. All right, so I'm going to click Continue, Apply. I have to type in Apply. And now I can go to About Schedule, and I'm just going to use this mat filter. It's obviously all 10U because that's the only thing it's assigned to a mat. And here's all of the matches. You have 30 matches on 1, 2, 3. You have 26 on 4, 23 on 5, and 20 on 6. So you may have to get a little bit fancy at the end to try to get them to end at the same time. That's a whole nother video. But basically the only other thing I need to show you now is I'm going to talk a little bit more about schedule, which is what I'm on. Each one of these lines represents a round for a whole bracket, which is different than Bout Detail. Bout Detail shows a line for each individual match. So obviously in round 1 there's 2 for this bracket, which is these 4 kids. But in Bout Schedule, it's a line for each round of each bracket. This is also a really easy way to go find a bracket. Sometimes if you're like, what mat is your kid on? Mat 1. What does he weigh? About 50 pounds. Then you can just pretty much tell it's going to be this bracket. You can also search for the kid. But anyway, that I'm getting off topic. So this page is useful if you have, if you're using bout sheets. You can in a round robin tournament you can just print them all out. I like to do it. I would choose the mat. I would print selected bouts, and that would be a whole bout stack just to take to mat 1. And so on. You can do mat 2 in a separate stack. You don't have to print all your bout sheets out at the same time. This is the easiest page to print bout sheets. And then we're going to show you how to print brackets. Most of you know how to do this, but just in case, I'm going to show you that. I'm going to go to bracketing, printing. Also, I like to go to operating printing. Brackets. You can select all of your brackets here, select all, print. Make sure you do landscape before you print them out. So you would go Control P and to move this over so I can see it, landscape, and then you'd be good to go to print your brackets. All right, that's about all I have for the beginning training. Tune in to our other videos for more information. Thank you.